We will all throughout this kind of touch on some practical ways to rest. So first of all, we are going to start with the nervous system. I think the nervous system is kind of one of those things that over the last few years has been getting a lot of hype. Sometimes we understand it. Sometimes it's one of those words that it's like, what really is that? So for tonight's purposes, we're going to talk about the nervous system in kind of two ways. We're going to talk about it in like its protective mode, but also in our rest mode. So when we talk about that protective mode, we talk about fight, flight, or freeze, or people please. Sometimes that fight or flight kind of gets a little bit of a bad rap because we are spending a lot of time and lots of conversations these days talking about how do we bring ourselves out of fight or flight. Fight or flight, the freeze, the people please, that activated part of our nervous system is really important. Without that, none of us would be alive. That is the part of our brains and the part of our bodies that protects us. So if we were walking in the woods and we saw a big brown bear, this part immediately flips on and tells us, whoa, hold up, this is not safe. You need to fight it. You need to flee, run, and get the heck out of here. You need to freeze and not move, or people please. We need to like try to make things calmer, smoother, right? Like maybe offer the bear like some food or something, right? Distract it, get it to go away, right? So it's really important. What's happened in our society today is that this part of our nervous system, this part of our body gets activated way more than it needs to or way more than it should. Our body doesn't know the difference between I'm about to be attacked by a big brown bear or, oh my goodness, I'm going to be late to this meeting. Both of those things activate our nervous system. They get us in that heightened state. Oh no, I've got 4 text messages and I need to respond to them. Shoot, 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 right? So our bodies and our brains spend a lot of time in this activated state. And so it does this automatically, right? That's the other piece about this fight, flight, or freeze. It does it automatically. It just happens. The flip side, and what we're going to spend time talking about tonight, is this rest and digest portion and piece. This part that slows down. One of the reasons it's called rest and digest is because when the fight, flight, or freeze part of our body is activated, it takes blood away from our gut, right? Our stomach, our processing for food, and it puts it towards our limbs. It puts it towards our lungs. It puts it towards our heart so that we can act quickly and swiftly when we need to. That's why this flip side, our parasympathetic nervous system part of us, is the rest and digest. It's that calming. Both are really helpful and both are needed. Our parasympathetic, that calming, that rest and digest place, needs a little bit of help to get there. We need to do things to get us there. So that's why we're going to spend some time talking about that, talking about how do we get there? How do we stay there? How do we invite our body to come to this place? Self-care. It's really interesting because as I talk and as I work with people, I hear some people that love self-care. It excites them. They have their things that they do. They're like, oh yes, this is how I take care of myself. This is what I do. Then I hear some other people that are like, oh my gosh, that is like one more thing on my to-do list. I don't have time to do it. I don't know where I'm going to fit it in. And yet other people still are like, yeah, as we start doing the work, we boil it down. It's like, yeah, but I really don't have time for myself. I don't know how to take time for myself. One of the points on here is, as women, we are trained and praised and doted on for caring for others, right? From the time that we're little, right? Like us little girls carrying around babies, changing diapers, doing things, helping. What we don't do a good job of is loving on ourselves and taking time for ourselves. It's and neither one of them are bad, right? That's part of our role and part of our job. And a lot of us, like it's what we love doing. It's realizing that we need to take time for ourselves too. One of the other things that I am super big on and my training has really taught me is that language is powerful. So this word of self-care, some people, that word feels a little unsettling. That word feels hard. That word feels a little difficult. So I want to offer some other options of words and language that we can use tonight. Self-release, self-nourish, self-relax, self-support, self-encourage. All of these are aspects of what we're talking about when we do self-care. All of these things are layers of things that our body needs and our spirit needs in order to come back to that calmer place, come back to that rest and digest. One of the patterns that I see in lots of people as well is that it can be hard for us to take the time to do this for ourselves. So if this is one of those things where you're like, yes, I'm coming tonight because I want to know how to do this better. I don't do this well. If you're like, oh man, I'd like to think about this, but really figuring out how to do this for myself and placing myself in a position of, yeah, this is what I'm going to do for me feels hard. I'd like to encourage you that as we're talking and looking at this stuff tonight, that you think about, okay, what would I tell a friend to do? If this were my significant other, if this were a kid, if this were somebody that I was meeting with and spending time with, what would I tell them to do? How would I want them to love themselves? How would I want them to spend time with themselves? Start there. And then we'll, at the end, I have an activity that you guys can do on your own to kind of bring it back to yourself. So does that make sense? Sound okay? Okay. All right. So tonight, where we're going to spend the majority of our time is from this book called Sacred Rest. Somebody that I follow posted there's 7 categories of rest. And it so hit me and resonated just looking at those 7 categories, because so many times when we hear the word rest, when we hear self-care and we hear taking a break, it's just like, I'm gonna zone out. I'm gonna binge watch something. I'm gonna scroll on my phone. I'm gonna go take a nap. I'm gonna go get a massage, right? I'm gonna go have coffee with a friend. And all those things are great things. It also can feel limiting. What I appreciated about this is that these 7 categories talk about the 7 different aspects of our spirit, or the 7 different aspects of who we are that need help and nourishment. Oh, I forgot to put in this. I will circle back, or you can just, when you Google Sacred Rest, I just did like Dr. Sandra on her website. She has an assessment type thing that you can fill out, and it will tell you where you are at on these 7 categories and these 7 areas of rest. So when I took it, some of the numbers were a little surprising. I was like, oh, I thought I was doing better in that area. Some of the numbers I was like, oh yeah, that tracks. My suggestion whenever people do that and look at these things is always, okay, see where, are you feeling like I'm up for a challenge? If you're feeling it like you're up for a challenge, you might start with one of the numbers or one of these areas as we're looking through this, one of these areas where you're like, oh yeah, I don't do that very well at all. I'm gonna take a really big challenge. I'm gonna bite this off and I'm gonna knock out this area. Other times we're in a place where we're like, oh no, I need a baby step. I need something that feels tangible, that feels doable, that I can feel successful in. So whether it's things that you're reading on this that you're like, oh yeah, I can do that, or you take that assessment. Start where feels good to you. All right, so if you would like to unmute and answer this, that's great. If not, I'm just going to ask this question and let you guys chew on it for just a few seconds. Why can rest be so challenging? Why do you think it's one of the things that we avoid or maybe put down at the bottom of our list of things to do? One of the things that I hear often that people, like feedback from people, is that, when I rest, when I get quiet, things come up that I don't necessarily want to think about or I don't want to do. One of the things that is talked about a lot, Brene Brown talks about it a lot, is that in a society where being a go-getter, where being busy is celebrated, that to rest and play and take time out and take time off of things is hard because it can be looked down upon. So as we're reframing, as we're relooking, as we're refiguring out about rest and what to do, know that there may be some of those parts and some of those messages from our families of origin, from society as a whole, from just messages that we've told ourselves, that might be causing a little bit of friction in these areas of rest. Just be aware of those, and you can start to tell yourself a different story about rest and about these things.
Katie, I was just going to point out that there are some people are messaging in the chat if you have pulled up.
Let me okay, let me see if I expand it.
Is it at the bottom of your
got it.
screen? It's
Yep.
at the bottom of mine. Did you see it?
Yeah, when I went to screen mode. Okay, why? Okay, there we go. Too much caffeine, hormones are out of whack. Oh, about the rest. Yes. Yes, there's just too much to do. Agreed. Yes. The anxiety and the anxious mind, so much responsibility. Yeah. Yeah, it feels like, again, there's too much to do, right? Like, and I don't know about you guys, but I feel often that I can just put myself, right, myself and my needs on the bottom of the to-do list. Like, oh, it's okay, I'll get to that later. In the book, she tells a story about, you know, like this woman had, you know, it was her day, right? And so she you know, drop the kids off at school. When she dropped the kids off at school, somebody was like, oh man, somebody couldn't be at the book fair. Can you please come and be at the book fair? She's like, sure, it's only 2 hours. I can still have the rest of the day, you know, to go do all the things I need to do. You know, the 2 hours turned into talking to somebody, then turned into her sister needed a phone call. I mean, like her whole day got eaten up. And then at the end of the day, like she didn't even have a chance to get herself lunch. Right? Because again, there's too much, that there is always a to-do list. And so it does take shifting. And so part of what I've done in this is also those things that we can do that are short and sweet, that don't take us taking a half a day, right? That don't require us to have a lot of time. Now, there are going to be those things, right? And what I found in my own work in this is that the better I get at doing it in little chunks, the easier it comes to do it in big chunks as well. I have the chat up now, so I will try to keep an eye on it. But Gina, if I don't see it, please feel free to holler at me. Okay, we are going to start with physical rest. The thing that I found interesting about this physical rest is that, I don't know about you guys, but when I think about physical rest, I think about naps, and I think about, you know, taking a break. Like, I'm going to go lay down and rest. I'm going to take a nap. I'm going to, you know, do something that like down regulates sleep type. She talks about rest as being active and being active or passive. And this active rest, like you guys see here, is stretching, is breathing, is yoga, is meditation, is walking. And as I was reading it, I started a Pilates practice a few years ago. And when I first started it, it was really hard. I used one of those like thick foam rollers, and rolling out was really painful. And now at the end of a really long day, I lean into and I look forward to that rolling out, the stretching. And that's that active physical rest. There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score, and this thought about how our bodies hold on to things differently than our brains. right? There's a yoga practice, there's you know, kinergetics, there's all these things that teach us that the body's holding on to things. This layer of the active rest, the stretching, the walking, the meditation is helping our bodies to release the things that we've been holding on to. If we've been sitting all day, right? If we've been moving, if we haven't been moving, then our body's craving that. Our body is wanting to do those things. Oh yeah, vibration plate. So good. Yes. I love that you have like things that work for you. I think that's super important in the work that we do, right? With ourselves and with others, that you know, I know it works. I know what helps me feel like I can physically release, right? That's part of this rest layer, and part of the reframing and the different language to take with this is that this rest is also helping us to let go and release those things. So yes, napping is still important. The other layer that she really talks about is that when we do these things to physically release and do the active physical rest, it helps us in the passive physical rest. So it helps improve our sleep. Mental rest. This layer is, I think, one of the things that we just don't think about. How our lives have shifted so much that our brain is constantly on the go. One of my friends sent me a meme a few weeks ago that said, "I'm sorry I didn't respond to your text message, but my brain is processing too many things. I'm processing too many things on a brain that was meant to sit in a cave and eat berries." Our sweet little caveman brains, our sweet little like non-technology, low stimulus brains are constantly flooded. From the time that we wake up till the time that we go to bed, and even while we're sleeping, the buzzing of electricity. I don't know if you guys have experienced recently or noticed that when we lose power, there's this different layer of quietness that comes when the electricity just isn't pumping, when the electricity isn't flowing, when things aren't humming, right? These are things that our brain is constantly scanning, constantly aware of, constantly making note of. Also about this in a society where consumerism is a thing. Consumerism is something that we partake in for good or bad, right? It is what it is. Looking around and seeing clutter, looking around and seeing, oh, there's that pile there. Oh, there's that I got to do. Oh, there's that pile of laundry. Oh, there's this. Oh, there's that. Adds a layer of mental intensity to our brain. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes when we go out of town and we stay somewhere else, or like going over to a friend's house, I'm like, oh, I can sit and relax here because I can't see my to-do list. I can't see the laundry or the beds that need to be made or the things that need to be put up or the dust, right? So it's knowing that there's this layer of my brain going. I liked this quote of, mental rest is your mind's comfort zone. It's the place where your brain retreats to feel safe so your mind can function optimally. Can we do this every day? No. Can we leave? Can we escape? Can we shut things off? No. There are little things that we can do. Time blocking is really helpful for our brains. As women, our corpus callosum is smaller, which means that the electrical signals can jump back and forth and jump all over our brain a little bit quicker, which means that we're set up and we're more primed to multitask easier, which is great sometimes, right? Like it really helps us manage kids and work and house and things and school and all the layers. It also means that our brain can get more tired more quickly. So this time blocking is like, hey, I am just going to focus on cooking. I am just going to focus on emails. I'm just going to focus on this. Set a timer for 30 minutes. Stay focused on that. And it helps our brain not feel split in so many different directions. The other thing that we'll continue to talk about, and you'll see how these help in lots of different areas, is the meditation and the gratitude. The way that meditation calms our brain, the way that gratitude and focusing on things that are positive and helpful also helps quiet our brain. Spiritual rest. What I appreciated about this is from the get-go, she talks in my language that talks about the difference between spirituality and religion. And she's not talking about religion. The spiritual rest layer is not talking about that. It's talking about your spirituality. It's talking about connection with the divine. It's talking about the connection of the divine within you, and then how that connection helps you to heal. She talks about this personal sanctuary and this being a place of safety. In this, she talks about bridges, and I loved this imagery of bridges being a pathway connecting places, right? Connecting one place to another place. Often, the bridges connect you from one area to another area, getting you over some sort of obstacle, getting you over some sort of rough terrain. When we connect to the spiritualness in us, the spiritualness of the divine, it helps us to make that bridge from difficult things to safety. It helps us to align to those pieces of us that have been fragmented, those pieces of us that have been injured and hurt. The other thing that I liked about this is the reminder of sometimes I don't have the answers. Sometimes I don't know where to go or what to do, and that's okay. Part of that spiritualness, part of the connecting to that can just be that, like, sitting there, like, I don't really know what to say. I feel empty, I feel numb, I feel uncertain, and it's just okay to sit here and be and connect to how you see the divine, how you see your higher power, how you see God. The piece about this that you guys see down here at the end is this reuniting our body and our mind and our spirit, and reconnecting those. We can do that through engaging our senses. So sitting and noticing, like, okay, how do I feel in this? Like, if I've had a bad day, what parts of me feel activated? What parts of me feel unsettled? How do I feel when I'm sitting in the sun? I love sitting in the sun. It is like my happy place. I can, especially on days like today when it's cold and gross, or days when I've moments, not even days, right? Moments when I've had a rough moment, I very quickly will go to sitting in the sun and feeling that warmth, and how that connects me to the divine, how that connects me to a higher power. Yes, the sun makes us all feel so amazing. I posted the other day that when we had that warm sunny day, every errand that I ran, I just sat in the sun for like an extra minute and was like, give me the sun, right? It's funny how the more that I lean into spirituality, the more that I see God so much bigger and feel connected to God in these ways that I never saw before. Emotional rest. So the woman that wrote this book is an MD, and it was really comforting for me as a therapist to see an MD talk about the importance of emotion. One of the things that came up for me as I was preparing this and talking about emotions is emotions, right? Who loves Dirty Dancing and can picture the iconic scene of nobody puts baby in a corner? That is how our emotions feel. Our emotions feel like, I am not going to sit back. I am not going to be quiet. When things happen and we don't honor, we don't look at, we don't explore, we don't lean into our emotions, they bottle up and they come out in ways that we don't expect them to. I have worked with several people that are in professions where emotions are not celebrated and emotions are not looked at or seen as important. And it's always amazing to them that through the work of how much our emotions are running the show, how much our emotions are calling shots that we didn't realize they were calling. So when something happens, and I think the other layer about this is when something happens, helpful or hurtful, right? I have emotions about it. For some people, those happy, excited emotions can be as intimidating as sad and scary and hard emotions. So it's realizing that whatever the emotion is, it has a space to show up. It has a place to show up. The other layer about emotional rest that's really important for us to consider and think about is that not only is it, excuse me, my emotions, it's also the emotions of those around us. We know that frequency and energy and layers of things that feeling people is something that we're starting to know and learn more about and talk about more. And how I explain this to people, it's like, you're sitting at a restaurant and you're like, somebody is looking at me. Somebody, oh my goodness, why are they looking at me? Right? We could feel that, right? Um, Parents, sisters, brothers, like family members will talk about like, oh, I felt like something was going on with you today. There's this connection with people and we know what's happening and we know what's going on. We know that our brains have what's called mirror neurons. And so as I'm sitting across from somebody, as I'm sitting with somebody, I can pick up on what's happening with them because of those mirror neurons. It's one of the things that separates us as humans, gives us our humanity and our compassion, different from other animals and other species. This is great, right? It helps us connect. It helps us be empathetic. It helps us have relationships. It's also important to know that that can also be draining for us. It can also be something that weighs on us and drains our battery instead of fueling up our battery. So how do I find a rest in this emotional area? Y'all, boundaries is something that I will talk about. I'm sure I'll talk about it on my deathbed. Boundaries are something that, emotional boundaries, physical boundaries. I know that if I'm about to step into a conversation with somebody who's intense, I am going to boundary up in an emotional way. One of the languages, one of the word pictures I give people for this is Glinda the Good Witch, how she floats down in on her bubble, right? I picture me with a bubble and I can hear them, but their intensity is going to bounce off, right? As we were kids, I'm rubber, you're glue, bounces off of me and sticks onto you. Yes, it can be really difficult with teens. Their feelings can be super big, especially when they are teens that you live with in your house and you have a deeper emotional connection with them. So I picture that, right? And the more we picture, the more we practice, the more that we do this, the more that I can feel protected. And so I'm going to picture those big emotions bouncing off. I can still hear what they're saying. I don't have to absorb it. For the longest time, I had a backpack and I just put everybody's things in my backpack. I just put everybody's stuff in here and carried it. It's not mine to carry. So one of the ways that I can support rest and I can support my body and my brain and recharging is I can protect myself. Our friend Tiffany years ago told me about white angelica, and it's an essential oil that was designed to help protect my energy, keep it here, but also protect me from other people's energy. And so part of my morning ritual, part of my morning routine is smelling it and putting it on and starting my day with this intent and this way of being to protect me from picking up other people's things. Also being emotionally aware. Just start thinking about like, oh man, when I walk into the store, I don't really like how I feel in here. All right, maybe I'm going to go to another reason. Maybe I'm going to go to a different store. I'm going to go find a different place. Oh, good. I'm glad the imagery helps. Oh yeah. It's great. I think not only, Gina, like teaching teens about this layer and about this piece um of protecting themselves, but man, I feel like with teenagers, their emotion, like they're just trying to figure out the world and their emotions and their hormones, and they are so much more um tender, intense. So when we can help do things to protect them so that they are not stepping in more raw is really great. So the other layer about emotional rest that's important is also realizing where you can be authentic. When we do not feel like we can be authentic, we cause like a discontent, like this rubbing with us and with ourselves. And so to lean into those places where I can be authentic, where I know that who I am and what I think can be fully embraced. Lori said, um, envisioning white light. I love that. Y'all, whatever word pictures, whatever imagery, whatever things help you to see that boundary, whatever things help you to feel this layer of protection, the more you practice it, the more it becomes an easy tool for you to use, right? So like there are days where I'm running out the door and I don't have my rituals, I don't have my white angelica moment, I don't see my bubble, right? Um and because I do it all the time, I can be in the car, I come up against somebody and I'm like, whoo, that felt a little too tender. Oh, I forgot to bubble up. And I can just bubble up really quickly. You know, it's like that saying of riding a bike. The more you do it, the easier it is. Okay, social rest. I know that for women, social rest can be one of those double-edged swords. There is research that women in community are live longer, have healthier lives, have richer, deeper lives. Our health. There, in this section, because she's a medical doctor, there was all these stats about um, uh, like your cardiovascular health and living longer and all of these things about how when we engage in relationship, how it not only is great for our brains, but it's great for our body and it's great for us as a whole. This quote that says, social rest is when you find comfort in our relationships and social interactions. It's finding those people that are your people. And I put on here the quality over quantity. It is not about having 72 people. It's about having one or two people. It's about having those one or two people that you can go to and you're going to be connected with. That second point there, I have the being seen. Oh, that's supposed to be heard. Typo. Being seen, heard, valued, and delighted in. You can search that phrase and come up with this modality called circle of security. And what circle of security says is that when we have healthy, secure attachments, we have healthier relationships. We do that by seeing people, hearing them, valuing them, and delighting in them. You guys, that one of the ways that we can socially rest really quick, really easily is when we see people, we can smile at them. When you walk past a mirror, you smile at yourself. You delight in yourself. Hey, woohoo! Like there are even times where like my hair is a hot mess and I'm like, ha, you look real good. Right? Like it's fun. I can have fun. I can embrace myself. I can I can be excited to see me just as much as I'm excited to see other people. Oh yeah, I put that stuff in there. Strengthening our immune system, our cardiovascular system. So prioritizing face-to-face interactions. This doesn't, again, y'all, this doesn't have to be one of those things that we do and find a 4-hour time block. This can be, I'm at the store and I see a friend and I am just going to lean into 2 minutes of, oh my gosh, it's so great to see you. I'm like, how have you been? What's been happening? Okay, I've got to get groceries and head to work or head to get the kids or head to the next event. It's starting to see that this stuff can happen. I can shoot a text message. I can hop on a FaceTime. It's knowing that this doesn't have to be big things that take big chunks of time. Okay. Sensory rest. Friends, I could spend probably an hour at least, if not longer, just talking about sensory needs and our body as a sensory system and our bodies as how our sensory system impacts our daily. What I want you to hear tonight is that when we talk about our sensory systems, when we talk about sensory rest, it is our main 5 senses, but then I also want to touch on our proprioceptive system and our vestibular system. Our vestibular system is our inner ear. It's the balance. It's how we relate in gravity. It's why some people get car sick. It's why some people, and some people don't get car sick. It's why some people like swinging and roller coasters and some people don't. Okay. It's knowing that if you have a sensitive vestibular system, that sometimes riding in the car might feel overwhelming to you. Our proprioceptive system is our deep tissue. So if you would like touch yourself, right? Like just like lightly, and then I want you to squeeze and feel, like, especially if you squeeze at joints, feel the difference of that. That deep pressure is our proprioceptive systems. When we used to work on farms, haul heavy things, when we used to work in fields, our proprioceptive systems were activated a lot. When we sit behind computers, when we drive in cars, when we do the things that we kind of do now, our proprioceptive system, we talk push, pull, carry, lift, right? Like these three heavy lifting things. Our proprioceptive systems don't get engaged very much. I think that's why we've seen a lot of weighted blankets become popular, right? That feeds our proprioceptive system. When we have lots of input of one sensory system and not lots of input in another, we feel out of balance and out of whack. So it's knowing that. So for me, I am visually and auditorily fairly sensitive. When I go to Main Event, or even as a kid, Chuck E. Cheese, or I go into a school, to be visually stimulated and auditorily stimulated, I leave feeling dysregulated. So I know that I'm going to turn off radio. I'm going to not be on my phone. I am going to have quiet to lower the level of input from my visual system and my auditory system, so that when I go into those places and it gets filled up, I don't feel as overly stimulated. If you are a person who needs movement and you have been in a meeting or you've been in a training or you've been like doing a task on the computer, know that I need to do something to move my body more. This on here talks about the 20. Oh man. Typos are real good today, guys. I voice texted some of this, and boy, howdy, it shows. So the 20-20-20 rule is, I will go back and I will edit this before we send it out to people. The 20-20-20 rule is like to take a break every 20 minutes. If you're looking at a computer screen, take a break every 20 minutes and look at something 20 feet away. Give your eyes that break to look at something far off. So when I have like virtual days when I'm seeing people virtually, not only do I get up and move in between every client, my desk here will like rise up so that, sometimes I'll stand for part of a session just to get some movement. Earplugs. If you, like me, are auditorily sensitive, they have all these super great earplugs to just help dampen noise so that you don't get overstimulated. Sit in your car for a couple minutes. Don't be on your phone. Don't do anything. Just take a couple of minutes to just have some quiet and let yourself be in that quiet space before you go into or after leaving a loud space. She talks about this in the book. Tiffany talked about it last month. You will probably hear it a lot from those of us at WellOK. The constant buzzing of things, right? Like we talked about with, I think, the mental load as well. Turn off your routers, put your phone on airplane mode. I just saw a study that talked about when you sleep in a room with even a little bit of light, it impacts your sleep. I think reducing quality sleep by 40%. Is it 40 or 60%? So making sure that you're sleeping in a dark room. Know what sensory systems are more sensitive and work to accommodate those when you can. I will always be an advocate for wearing comfy clothes, making sure that if you are in a place where you're tired, where you're stressed, where you are feeling a little bit more worn out, make sure that you have something on that is not going to be another bit of feedback and another bit of information into your sensory system. Creative rest. This was an area that I found really fascinating, that I hadn't really thought much about. Creative rest is the experience of allowing beauty to inspire awe and wonder in you. When my family goes out of town, we are so good about going to art museums, experiencing new things, looking at new things. And when we're at home, we don't really do that. This weekend, we decided we would go down to the Oklahoma City Art Museum. And after reading this and being in this mindset, I was like, oh, creative rest is what I needed. I needed to look at other things. I needed to be inspired by other people's art. I needed to look at the textures. I needed to look at the things. I needed to engage my senses in this way of celebrating somebody else's wonder and awe and skills and abilities. At the same time, like walking outside and looking at the texture of a tree, looking at how it's winter, right? So like the snowflakes falling, the branches, like there was a couple of years ago that it was snowing like this and I was doing virtuals and I just like watching the branches as they collected snow. It's like, how cool is that? Like, it's so amazing when we can step back. Again, these are things that you can do in like 2 minutes, right? It doesn't have to be these long things that we do. How do we find rest in creative ways? When you think about being on vacation, what is something that you look forward to most? How can you add that in a few minutes a day? How can you maybe like once a month, once a quarter, add that in like a 30-minute time block? Okay. The other thing that she talked about in this creative rest, and again, I think it kind of goes with a couple other of the sections, is the flow break rhythm. So setting a timer, really allowing yourself to flow and be in the work zone of something for a bit, and then stepping out of that. All right. I have a list of activities based on these things that you can do in 1 to 5 minutes. So I really encourage you to look at this um, and see, okay, like, what do I feel like I can do? What do I feel like I can take on? You are going to hear and see lots of talking about taking deep breaths. The research on breathing, the research on calming self, the research on doing that, and how big of an impact it is. It's one of those things that's like, it's such a big bang for your buck, right? And so anytime that you can take some deep breaths, is just going to calm us down. It's going to bring us back to that rest and digest place. Kimberly said the beauty in everyday things like cutting of an apple. I agree. And again, guys, these are the things that we can do, that we can integrate pretty quickly, right? So like, all right, set a reminder on your phone so that, you know, about the time that you are making dinner, making lunch, getting a snack, whatever that is, like, oh, I am just going to be more present, be more aware of what it looks like. Like Kimberly, when you said that, we had apples with lunch, and the color and the texture on the apple was just so cool. Like the red and the lightish yellow. And I was like, oh, look at that. Right. Doing those things just bring us back. They help us be in the moment, and they help to calm our bodies. These are things that will take a little bit longer. These are things that when you have a little bit more time to set aside, just a few things that you can do. Baking can be such a creative process. It also can be like that process of just noticing, right? Like, oh my goodness, what happens when I mix the egg in this way? What happens when the flour gets mixed in? The unplugging for 12 or 24 hours, I feel like that's one of those things that for now seems really daunting. But as we do it for 30 minutes here, 30 minutes there, it's like, oh, I could unplug for half a day. Yeah. I might need to let some people know in my life, like, hey, I'm not going to be answering for a hot minute, but that's okay. I can do that. Try it for an hour. Set your phone aside and just see what it feels like. See what you notice. All right, digging a little bit deeper. For those of you that want some continued things that you can do, these are 3 things that you can look into, and 3 things that you can start to look at. Mindfulness is kind of a buzzword. So you can Google mindfulness and get some really great things. The big key part of mindfulness to know and be aware of is that it's being fully present in the moment. So it is, you know, like Kimberly was saying about the apple, right? Like, I think it was Medea was talking about like noticing the sun, being like a cat, right? It is being in this moment. It is being aware of what's going on right here, right now. And we can do that in so many different ways. There are meditations, there are guided things that you can do if you need some help to bring you to that place. Breathing, like I talked about a few minutes ago, it's so important and so helps to calm our nervous system and bring us back to that place. You can Google box breathing. You can Google figure 8 breathing. You can just, you know, ways that I can breathe. One of the resources I will tell you guys about is called Insight Timer. And I love it because it's all professionals. They're all people that are vetted. A couple of my friends that I trust explicitly, I've done work with, I send other people to do work with them. They're professionals. They show up professionally on that app and work with them. So from the inside out, it's a great platform. But you can search 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. You can search meditations for helping you go to sleep, helping you wake up. So if I've got 5 minutes before my next whatever, you can pull that up, do a 5-minute meditation, help you be present, help you have some good breath, help you bring a little bit of that rest to the here and now. There've been a couple of you who have mentioned, and I know this because of my own personal journey and because of the work that I do, that Insight Timer, IN, hold on, I'm going to type it in the chat really quick. INSIGHT timer. I'll pull it up real quick when I'm talking about this too. I'm a visual person, so it helps to see it. All right, can you guys see? It just looks like that, just that little like bowl with the white and clear. It's a little blurry. Self-worth. Self-worth is knowing my preciousness and my worth outside of anything that I do. Talk about self-esteem being what I do, self-worth being who I am. It is a journey for most of us. It's been a journey for me personally. It's now a journey that I walk alongside a lot of people to figure out. So if you're struggling to see yourself, to delight in yourself, to do some of these things because you just don't know that you deserve it, this is a great way for you to start. Begin with, it's just really easy like to go in Google and like type in a list of characteristics. Find like a characteristic kind, right? Other people say I'm kind. I know that I'm kind. I want to be more kind. Oh man. And so just go do that. Just go type in kind and sorry, there we go. Now it's in the group chat. Go. So kind is going to be your word for the week. And so if it works better for you to do it at night before you go to bed, great. If it works better to do it in the morning when you wake up, great. Pick a time during the day, in the middle of the day, doesn't really matter. And I am going to look at when in the last 24-hour time period was I kind. I opened up the door for someone. I used a kind tone of voice. I was kind to myself because I grabbed a snack. Just pick one characteristic, find 1 to 3 ways, 2 to 4 ways that I was kind in the last 24 hours. We can start to see ourselves differently and start to shift our view of ourselves and our self-worth. All right, so in the chat, if you guys want to unmute, whatever feels great. If you want to share a takeaway that you took, maybe just jot it down so that you know, okay, this is one practical tool that I can take and that I can shift so that I can lean into rest. I'd like to take just a couple minutes, open it up. Does anybody have any questions or any comments? Okay, I'm going to assume that silence means we're good. Okay, thank you guys for being here. Thanks for pivoting and doing this virtually on a night that the weather decided to throw us all some curveballs. So hope everybody stays safe, stays healthy, and we will see you guys next month. Thank you.